Morning all. Right, today is the day, now is the hour. It's time for the test. The jury is going to consider its verdict. I'm ready to go. I've got my leathers on, the bike's ready. I'm just going to show something though. Since removing the evap, by the way, we never did this before. Watch this for starting. Stone cold. Every time it's like that. So I've given it a final check. I've checked all the fasteners. Everything seems fine. It's always advisable, I think, to double check. So I'm about to go. Wish me luck. Fingers crossed, and let's see. I will be reporting back very, very soon. Okay, so I'm now back from the test ride, and I've just put some photographs up here so people have things to look at whilst listening to me droning on. So I'm back from the test ride, and I think I'll make a few points first before giving the verdict of the jury. First thing is, I am not a suspension expert. I am a reasonable average rider. You know, basically, I'm not a racing person, and so I'm an average rider. And as we're aware on this project, it's to drill or not drill the dampers. Drilling is more involved because you've got to set the dampers out. Now, as we know, there are plenty of blogs and things and channels on YouTube where people buy the YSS kit and plonk it straight in, which is exactly what I did. The reason behind this is quite obviously because either people don't believe that drilling makes a difference with the YSS kit, or it's lack of information from YSS themselves and from other places where people say you don't need to, it's fine. Other places say you do, other people say you don't, and so on. Hence me wanting to carry out this experiment. So taking the dampers out and drilling them is obviously more involved. I needed the special tool. I needed the rattle gun, beyond a shadow of a doubt, in order to do this job. So it's more involved. It's certainly messier, as my block paving will testify. However, is it worth it, and does it make a difference? Now, I've just come back from a 15-20 mile ride, very high speed, 70 to 80 on a Roman road that is straight but very bumpy. I know it very, very well. And as I've said in the previous video, I've had the YSS kit in the forks without drilling long enough to know how it behaves. Now, I've posted originally, wow, what a difference. And it's like floating along. Right, so having drilled them, it is a massive difference to a better performance. It is much, much better. So all of those people who said drill, you are now allowed to say and post in the comments, told you so. You didn't listen, but I did listen, didn't I? And I did it. I did initially didn't do it because I was a bit frightened of those dampers, and I shouldn't have been. So I've taken the bike out and done 70, 80 over bumps. I've deliberately gone over potholes, sunken manholes. I know the road as well. And the difference is very, very noticeable. Now, to those people who said you don't need to drill it, just plonk it in, I've done it and it's great. I would say fine. If, as I've said in all of my videos, if people are happy with what they've done, and then that's the main thing. But I'm not a suspension nerd. I don't really know. All I know is that when I took the bike out, it is immediately noticeable. I described the YSS kit when it first went in as floating. This is floating max. I've also noticed, I might be wrong, but when braking, there's a lot less fork dip. There's a lot less dipping of the forks when I brake. I don't know if emulators do that, but I slam the brakes on and notice that the bike doesn't sort of really sink down at the front like it did before. The ride quality is incomparably better. It is floating max. Cornering, bumpy corners I feel a lot more safe. There is a particularly series of bends round here with bumpy corners on, and you go round it, hit one of these bumps, and you've got to be careful with the drilling of the dampers, and obviously the emulators must be doing something and working. It is far safer going round those bends. It's just 100% noticeable, and that's with one 8mm hole drilled. One of the two 3mm holes enlarged to 8mm. I don't think you need to do any more than that. I can't imagine it would make any more difference to be filling it full of holes like a Swiss cheese, other than making the fork a bit unsafe. My verdict, the verdict of the jury, is beyond a shadow of a doubt better. Drill him, is what I'd say. And I'm glad I did. So, I personally am pleased to have bottomed it out. I'm sure some people who've been watching my series of videos will think, thank God for that, he's finally got an answer. It's immeasurably better. And I've used, as I say, I've used both with the undrilled rods long enough and over the, a period of time over different roads, and drilling it again on the same roads. I've done, a lot faster than I would normally go. 80 at one point down Ermine Street, which is a Roman road. It's straight, but it's got these bumps. We'll have to get the Romans back to fix it, because the local council won't. And, it was just absolutely brilliant. And I'm not saying that because I've gone through all this rigmarole. And I'm not saying it because, because I've done it. As with a gear indicator project, if it's rubbish, I would say so. If it wasn't worth doing, I'd say so. I'd say save your money, don't buy a rattle gun, and, don't waste your time buying replacement oil. It's not worth it. But for me, as a normal rider, average rider, with experience of lots of bikes, but not really finely tuned to the niceties of suspension, it's an immediately noticeable difference. It is a vast improvement on what was already an improvement. And therefore, I would say to anybody, if you're going to do this, drill them. I'm quite surprised, to be honest, I'm quite surprised that is the result of this particular exercise, because I thought, part of me thought, it's maybe suspension experts and people who are, used to racing bikes, and, obviously, if you're not tuned into something, and if you don't appreciate the value of something, because you can't discern that value, then, it doesn't exist. And I did think, I thought, well, I'm just an average type rider. I thought I'll probably go out. I've gone through all this rigmarole and find it's just, not much. Maybe try to convince myself that it has made a difference because I've spent hours and hours doing it. But it's not that. It's 100%. Take my word for it. It's 100% better. It's floating max on this. And the bike feels more sure-footed or sure-wheeled, going round bends with bumps. There's no spine jarring. There was a lot less before, but as I mentioned in the previous video, at speed you did still get a bit of spine jarring at speed, as other people have commented. So I think there's less dive on the forks when I brake. No doubt somebody will say, that's, you're right or you're wrong, but it's hugely different. And therefore, my verdict, and it's the end of this project now, my verdict on this one is do it. Drill them. One hole. 1 8mm hole's enough, in my opinion. I can't imagine you could improve that now. what a difference. I really enjoyed it, this ride this morning. And I'm going to check everything now. I'm going to check the fasteners again, obviously. You do, when you've had the front end off a bike, I think it's advisable. And I would say at this stage, thanks to everybody who's put the comments in. And, we've had this dilemma, haven't we? We've had this do you, don't you? And both are justifiable. Why don't the manufacturers do it? Why don't they say to do it? Australia, YSS say drill them, then it disappears off the instructions. And then when I contacted TEC, well, you can do it if you want, it might be better if you did. It's all a bit kind of evasive, and I do think, as one or two people have commented, that I think YSS are trying to play it both ways. That what they don't want to say is, in order to fit our kit, you are going to have to take the front end off your bike, you're going to have to take your forks out, do this, do that, drill them. They are trying to say it's a plug and play improvement, which a lot of, I noticed, other channels and things, I'm not dissing them, but a lot of them just say this is how you plonk the kit in, yeah. And that's what it says on the YSS instructions. But I think what they're doing is playing a bit of a disingenuous game here, where they're saying plug and play, and that's it. So thanks to everybody for their input. I really appreciate, and I've really found it interesting. And I hope you have too. And there you have it. My verdict. Definitely floating max. Drill them. In the meantime, take care everybody as usual. Ride safe and keep your eyes and ears open, as we all do. And the next project which I'll be doing, hopefully very soon, will be the front and rear cameras on the bike, so that I can capture all those elderly people pulling out in front of me and squinting into the sun, boy racers trying to overtake with 2 inches off my foot pedal, and people deciding they want a close-up view of the inside of my exhaust pipes. So I'll be doing that next, and again I will post an honest appraisal as to whether it's worth doing. So take care and see you soon.